when you're dealing with stuff like legal issues, accounting issues, the reason you're paying them is because they know what they're doing. For you to learn just enough to be able to get by on what you need to do this isn't enough. And that's just legal and accounting. If there's anything else, I'm by myself. I'm not hiring anybody anytime soon. But I'm not that great with making art on the computer. I can draw decently, but I'm not an artist. So there's a lot of programmer art. My programmer art might be better than someone else's programmer art, but it's still programmer art. So just on all of that, if I can afford it, it's nicer to pay someone else for their expertise than it is for me to do it myself, because it'll take much longer for me to do a halfway decent job than it would be to do a really good job.
I agree. No, that's really good. I mean, that's anything that you. I would say the biggest lesson that I have learned is that you can't do it all. Even if you know you can, you know what I mean? Like everyone here knows that there's a ton of stuff you could do. You could learn to play the guitar like a flamenco guitarist. You could do all this other stuff, but you're not going to be able to do everything. You're not going to be able to learn everything. Like he was saying, I can concept very well. I can come up with great ideas. I can't really draw worth a damn. I can kind of make stuff in Photoshop and Illustrator, but I mean, really, if you want to get down to it, I need to hire someone or hire people to make graphics and create things. I can project manage with amazing skill. I think I can do a whole lot of other stuff, but it's important to know what you can do and what you really should bring other people in to do.
I'm going to put a plug in here too. That's kind of the purpose I really wanted to have this meeting is for a lot of us are professionals here. Some of us are content providers for video games. Some of us be artists, some of us be animators, sound guys, music guys, and I think this is probably a good way for us to start meeting each other. And maybe us local developers didn't know that someone here is an artist, an animator, for example. Now we can meet an animator. Now we can meet someone who's a sound expert, and we can work on a contract, like outsourcing some of our internal work to some of the guys here. So that's definitely an opportunity that I was looking for with this meeting.
One other thing too, and this is an old piece of advice, but get it in writing. If you're going to be doing something with a partner, write down terms. If you're going to do something with a company, make as detailed a contract as you can. The contract is just an agreement. You can add whatever things to it you want to add to it. I mean, whether those things are defensible in a court of law, you have to wait till you get to a court of law to find out. But the fact of the matter is just get everything well read and read carefully contracts that you're signing. That's the rest of that.
Questions? Yeah, Fletcher. I don't really have a question so much as something I just want to add to the discussion. I think most people in here have heard of Garage Games. They're kind of like a small
Torque Engine.
Yeah, they'll develop the engine. They just came out with a beta website called InstantAction.com, which is a platform I'm really excited about. It's kind of targeting like the industry in between, or the demographic in between like casual flash games and full-blown console games, which I'm excited about because I think a lot of flash games are crap, and a lot of console games take too long for me to play. What it is, it's a site where you can just go there and play full-blown 3D games in your browser, and they're pretty high-quality games, but they only take like an hour or two to play, which is really cool. And since it's all on their website, they have like simple Marble Blast games, and they go all the way up to like full-blown first-person shooter games, and I'm really excited about the first-person shooter that's coming out. So I think they're targeting a really interesting demographic where people can just go to the site and pay money for these quality games instead of just playing some dumb flash game or something like that.
I know I keep mentioning Quake 3 a lot, but that's probably because it's an older game that most everyone's played. I know that there's a Quake 3 in a browser in the works. They're doing beta test now. So yeah, there seems to be a market there for just being able to play in your browser any kind of game you want. Like you were saying, this isn't just casual cheap clones that people have made. This is serious business. This is people making massive games and then putting it into a browser that runs at a decent frame rate. What was an interesting thing, I guess, here's a whole site that's dedicated to it, so you can go there for any kind of game. But RuneScape is a game that some of you might have played, but it's interesting because only recently did World of Warcraft surpass it in most people playing. Apparently RuneScape was #1 MMO in the world for a while. And it was just a Java game that somebody made. The graphics were pretty cheap looking. It was 3D. But there were so many people playing it. And I remember talking to an 11-year-old who was playing the game, and I said, you know this is more populous than World of Warcraft? And he said to me, what's World of Warcraft? Sorry. So it's just, it's nice to see that there's companies actually looking at that and saying, this is what people want, and making something for it.
Let's try to take a couple more questions, then we'll finish here. Yeah, go ahead.
Sean, you mentioned one button games that you found surprisingly fun. Do you have any specific examples?
I can't remember the name off the top of my head. I remember
like how the game played.
there was one and I'm sure you've seen this one, like a stone throwing one that they had, and at that time it was pretty cool because I haven't seen a game like that. Well, not actually, I've seen a bunch of ones like that type of game. But it's like a stone throwing game where you have to time the I guess the button pushes with the skimming of the stone in the water. It was kind of cool. It had like cheesy music, and the stone looked like an anime type of character, and it was kind of cutesy, you know. So it was pretty cool. In another game they had was some guy running, and you push the button, he would do an action based off the context he was in. I don't know if I can describe it any better than that. But like if there was like a ladder, he'd climb up the ladder, for example, and he kept running. If there was like a pit, he'd jump over the pit. And so it was kind of cool to see something just with one button do all that, and you're like, and it was kind of a fun game. So that's another example that I saw. I can't remember the name.
Yeah.
My question is, you're talking a lot about the split between, major developers and publishers and the small indie guys. And I feel like video games in general are becoming a really awesome, great medium for telling stories. I mean, if you look at the big releases like Mass Effect and some other games that have had incredible storylines that are really fun to interact with those worlds and whatnot. So my question is, how do you think indie developers can achieve that in some fashion with a limited budget, not having 3 years and millions of dollars to invest into it? I still want to jump on that train as a little guy and tell good stories and give someone a good experience with maybe on a smaller scope in terms of development.
You guys mind about how about this one?
Sure.
I think that's such a good question because I think that the big thing that's missing from 99% of console games is any kind of coherent story. And it's been missing. And the thing where I think small indie developers can really beat out much larger competitors in terms of enjoyability and grip on the player is through a good story. You don't need millions of dollars to make a good story.
Sometimes be a crack team too. Like, the small guys tend to be a little bit more agile than the larger guys because larger guys deal with stuff like process and all this documentation. So I come from a lot of big different industries. So like EA guys, like what was it, Halo 3 had 250 employees. Can you imagine the logistic nightmare of trying to manage all that stuff?
Well, and also imagine the creative nightmare. I mean, as we're all aware, the largely publicly traded now console video game industry is basically morphing into another bad version of Hollywood.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And you have more creative control as an indie. I mean, most Hollywood films have crap scripts. They're crap from beginning to end. And you go and watch them because, oh, that's a cool CG. But you're not watching it because you're really interested in finding out what's going to happen in Spider-Man. You don't actually give it. Look at games like Zork. How many countless hours did I spend typing swing sword? You grew. And that was completely text-based, but it was a great story. Another great thing about the Grand Theft Auto game, not to beat this in the ground, but the individual adventures were cool. They made sense, and it was like a modern version of for a few dollars more, or whatever that Clint Eastwood movie, which was ported from Kurosawa. Where there's gangs being played off against each other. Your character never speaks. Yeah, Fistful of Dollars. Fantastic. You never talk. You go through this whole thing, and the character never says one word. Genius. So I think there's plenty of room for like the Road Warrior. The cool thing about Road Warrior is, the tassels, chaps, and mohawks and all that stuff. In fact, here's this guy who, you know, doesn't speak to people when he meets them on a planet where there's no one else, you know what I mean? How insane is that? What a great story it's all about.
I think the Estes tracks help though.
Yeah, yeah. Red Mohawk.
Yeah, Coach, I want to comment on story real quick, if I could. A lot of people today, a lot of people today are talking about story in games not being so much about the writing